Good evening. Another little news update on the back of the Orlando Regional. Got a bit of GenCon news coming in, and then of course the regional itself and events there. It doesn't sound like we got any news coming in on the Jasco stream there, no previews, nothing like that. So pretty much just the regional itself. The Orlando Regional was won by Jacob Johnson playing Earth Kirishima 2. Congratulations to him. Earth Kirishima 2, a new character from the DLC that just came out. And this was a pretty defense-oriented build, kind of a defense-first build, but running, the hardened package and, Texas Smash and some back alley Haymaker and, just kind of making up for some of Earth's weaknesses with Kirishima's just sort of raw value play that he gets to do. So there were a couple of those in the top cuts. There was also a Fire Kirishima 2 in the top cuts, so a good first showing for that character. They kind of paired off against each other a lot in the top bracket, so it's hard to know. It's hard to read too much on that in terms of how they face against the broader field, other than, obviously a few of them got there, so he's pretty darn good. We'll see how he does going forward. So yeah, there will be, I don't want to get into the full top 16 here. Andrew Holder from Go Beyond Gaming normally does a really good job of that, so I'm sure he'll have a top 16 video coming out soon once he can gather up all the deck lists. I'll link to his channel in the description, so you should go check him out if you, for some reason, don't know who he is already. Yeah, other than that, a few little bits of news today. They actually put the Series 2 promos up on the Redemption store. So now you can go into the Play MHA app to the Redeem Your LP page, and you can order some of those Series 2 promos, including the provisional promos, which have been really, really hard to get up until this point. It seemed like maybe a bit of a reaction to some talk in the Discord about how, people are talking about dropping from their GenCon regionals just to go do things that would get them provisional promos. So, to try to get a little bit out ahead of that, they don't really want that look. So they're going to put them up for redemption a little bit earlier than they did with Series 1. We'll see how they handle Series 3 with these provisional promos. Clearly, the rate at which they've been getting out there hasn't been very good. So we'll see what they do with that going forward. Jesco also put out a forum with a call for helpers, looking for helpers to do demos and some judging perhaps for them at GenCon. And so yeah, if you're interested, there's a little bit of pay that they might cover some things like your badge, your hotel room, things like that. Different levels for different amounts of help. They normally get way more volunteers than they can actually take, but we'll link to that form in the description if you can't find it on the Discord, if you're interested in maybe doing that. It is a little bit short notice for trying to actually travel to GenCon right now. GenCon usually, their hotels and whatnot usually fill up pretty early, but check it out if you're interested. You may be able to get in on that. We also got, not really formally announced, but sort of just appeared on the GenCon events pages, was some sort of indication of how you're going to get some of these GenCon promos. Or at least there's some ways to get them via entering events. So, the Thursday, Friday provisionals, you apparently get one GenCon Meteor Shower for entering. I assume there's going to be other ways to get these cards, but you will get one Meteor Shower if you enter one of those provisionals. They also have undescribed exclusive promos on offer for Learn to Play events and for the board game demo they're doing. We don't know what those are. We don't know if those are going to be Gen Con promos or if they're going to be something else. And then on the events pages for the regional, for the teams provisional, and for the giant card events, there's no mention of any sort of Gen Con promos or exclusive promos of any kind. Doesn't mean they're not being given out, they're just not on the event page. We're still awaiting some proper details from Jasco on how that's all going to sort out. Yeah, that's the news from over the weekend. Again, keep an eye out for top 16 video from Go Beyond Gaming. I don't want to assume that he's going to do it, but he's done it for the last, 4 or 5 events, so there's probably one of those coming. And upcoming, this coming weekend, there's going to be a very small provisional in Toronto at Anime North. That's probably going to be somewhere on the order of 10 to 20 people. So not really going to be a super notable event, but for the people that are there, it's going to be a shot at some promos and maybe a couple buys for an upcoming regional. The week after that, Ace Maneuvers is having its Evo badge tournament. And then it's the wait for Gen Con and the regional license exam there and the provisional the weekend after. The signups for that webcam provisional are not live yet. but you can sign up for all the Gen Con events, of course. Those signups all went live last week. And the Toronto Provisional if you're going to make it in the ES Maneuvers event. Those links, again, all in the description for you. So yeah, the other thing that came out of this week, and not really a news item, but kind of a kerfluffle, was a lot of confusion about the tiebreakers and how the strength of schedule works in the Play MHA app. So I spent some time today sort of digging in, trying to figure out if we could reverse engineer it. You saw a message, some exchange that Andrew posted between him and the director of organized play, Brian, at Jasco, try and shed some light on how this actually works. And I was able to, I think, reverse engineer it mostly. So I wanted to go over it here just so that people know, or we almost know in any event. So the way it looks like it works is it gives each opponent a win percentage, and that is not actually a match win percentage. It is the amount of points they got divided by the number of points they could have gotten. So what this means essentially is that a draw is 1 point and a win is 3 points, right? So if you have 5 wins and a draw in 8 rounds, you have 16 points, and you could have gotten 24, right? You could have won in all 8 rounds and gotten 24 points. So if you go 5-2-1, that is a 66.6% win rate, which is a little misleading calling it a match win percent, which is what the app refers to it as, because it's not a match win percentage. Right, it's actually your match win percentage. You won 5 out of 8 or 5 out of 7, depending on how you want to count it. Neither one of those is 66%. But it is a percentage of a kind, right? It's a match point percentage out of the amount you could have gotten. And if someone drops early, it just takes their percent as it lies. If someone goes 3-2 and drop, they got 9 points. They could have gotten 15, so that's 60%. And there is a floor on this. You don't get completely brutalized for an 0-2 drop or anything like that. The worst rating someone can give you is a 33%. So if someone goes 0-2 drop, someone goes 1-4. I had an opponent who went 2-6. That was kind of spooking me, but there is a floor on that of a 33% offering. So, the system makes some amount of sense, right? It counts every opponent equally. It is sort of the main benefit of doing this. The other way you could see it done would be if they were to just add up all the match points and all the possible match points, and then the dropped players, the players who dropped after a couple rounds, should be sort of weighted lower effectively. So there's some pros and cons to it, but this seems like a pretty good system overall. It does, to be clear, it averages these 8 individual numbers from your 8 opponents. So, there's a bunch of numbers on the screen here. If your 8 opponents had all these different ratings, it just takes them, sums them up, averages them. Every opponent counts equal amount, no matter when you face them, no matter whether you beat them, whether you lost to them, whether they dropped, anything like that. It just takes their match point percentage and feeds that into the average at equal weighting. So that's sort of why you see a lot of these strength of schedule numbers sort of hover around the mid-50s, because if you go through an event, most of them, first of all, the floor is 33, and most match win percentages are going to be 40, 50. If someone goes 5-3, if you get in at like 6-2, right, and you won your last round putting someone at 5-3, that's a 62.5. You're gonna have some 50s in there, some 37.5s. So most of these match win percentages are going to float between 50 and 60 in terms of the strength and schedule numbers, and that's why we see this, because of that 33 floor kind of bumping up the average a little bit. But the thing that caused a bit of an issue at the event is that the app doesn't update the strength of schedule numbers very aggressively. And this is the part we're not really sure about, is the exact timing of like what stages of proceeding the tournament cause the strength of schedule to update to what state. Is there something that happens between finalizing a round and starting the next round and finalizing the last round and going to and hitting the like make top cuts button? That there seems to be some shifting around that happens there. My best guess is that until you finalize a round, it's not going to update strength of schedule at all. So, at the end of the Orlando Regional, there was a bit of a delay before they announced top cuts because they were sorting some things out. So during that whole time, everyone was looking at the rankings with the player records were updated for round 8, but their strength of schedule wasn't. So they all had round 7 strength of schedule, at least I assume they did. Because once they said, okay, here are the final standings, all the strengths of schedules were different. But then the extra weird thing that happened was that when they sliced the top cuts in the morning, the strength of schedule numbers changed again. And we don't know why. That's the part we don't really have an answer on. But, you know, we'll see. I'm sure some people are Dago. Some people will, you know, experiment with the app if they have tournament organizer rights, maybe, and try to figure out what all is going on. It's a little hard to simulate an event at that scale with a top cut and really watch what the tiebreakers are doing. But I'm sure there will be some more sleuthing about that. I'm not sure Jasco themselves really knows, because this is based off of Best Coast pairings, and there's some developers that are converting it to an MHA app for them. So it's not like literal Jasco employees are directly working on the app all the time necessarily. At least I don't think so. It doesn't sound like that's what's going on. So we'll see what develops on that. But in terms of, you know, if you were to look at, say, the provisional 6 final standings, you could reverse engineer this. You could replicate this if you take anybody and look at all their records, all their opponents' records. This is the math for the final standings. We just don't quite know what happens along the way. Yeah, hopefully that clears some things up for people who have been a little confused by it. I was certainly confused by it. That's why I was looking into it. But this appears to be how it works, or how it's supposed to work in the end. And yeah, so that's all I've got for you today. You know, as always, you'll keep an eye out, you know, in a few days, Friday, Saturday, something like that. We'll do another one of these. Depends on the pace of the news, pretty much. And yeah, take care. I'll see you next time.